Finance and Personnel Committee together. Was, Mr. Kaylees, take the roll, please.
Carroll,
Here.
Brewer,
Here.
Luck, Manning,
Here.
Gotcho, Kirk,
Here.
Williamson,
Here.
Huey,
Here.
Fleming.
Here.
There's 6 out of 9. You have a quorum. Is that Julie?
Yes.
Okay.
So we
Thank
have a
you.
quorum?
You have a quorum.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Who's up there?
I don't know, I don't like it already.
You can't see it.
Trish, Tom, Julie, Tammy,
Tammy,
and Guest.
Gary Severson. Our God is our, there's a couple phone numbers, must be Julie.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Was,
Here, it's all right.
was the meeting properly noticed?
Yes, the meeting was properly noticed.
First, thank you. We have a 18-point agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve. Mr. Cooey, seconded by Manning. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. The November 7th meeting, unless I hear any objections, changes, I am going to approve those, declare those approved as published. Public comment. Public here. We're going into a closed session now. And I realize that this is not in our usual order of things. However, Mr. Wendell has a conflict time. So it behooves us to get important things done. It's all important, people, okay? But to get some things done while he's still around. So I would like to entertain a motion to go into closed session, and the reason we're going into closed session is to discuss salary matters. Okay? Mr. Manning, I have a second. Mr. Coy, all right. Do we have to take roll? No. Second. We voted to go back into open session. There. I would entertain a motion to move forward with the information we discussed in closed session.
Mr. Chair, I'd make that motion to, as outlined in the employment agreement, section 3A, the salary increase of $5,000 for the administrator, move forward with that, as well as in 3B, granting the across the board salary increase that other county employees get on that effective date. And that in addition to that, we also review the salary when doing the 12-month performance review as outlined in item 4 of the employment agreement.
Okay. Second, Manny. All right, I think we've discussed it to death. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Congratulations. Hands.
She said aye.
Both hands were. Okay,
Chair, would it be possible to present item 13?
all right.
Still here? Oh, she was just late.
If I hear no objection, North Council has asked us to move down to item 13 because he does have another appointment tonight, which I will do. Discussion and possible action, legal review of board rules, personnel policy, and community structure. Mr. Wendell or Administrator Pesh?
It's Administrator Pesh in consultation with Attorney Wendell. So we've been talking ad nauseum about rewriting our board rules, the fact that we need a comprehensive and cohesive personnel policy, and also exploring our committee structure, not the way it's structured, but the legality of our committee structures, because we have found that some of our committees are actually not in compliance with statute as far as the number of members and how voting is happening and other things like that. And so in order to ensure that we're doing everything the way that we should be, We would like to consult with Andy Phillips from WCA. You know, there will be a cost to that, but I think it's a cost that would be palatable. And so I'm asking for permission to consult with him in order to determine what that cost would potentially look like and bring that back to the committee. You know, there's work that Michael and I can be doing, and then just consulting with Andy along the way. So not necessarily asking him to rewrite all of it, but he is the expert on Wisconsin government. And this is really establishing the baseline for how we want to move forward as a governmental entity in more ways than one. And so I think it would be a great opportunity to have that knowledge base as we do that and as we move all of those things forward.
So you're looking for a motion? Or are you simply telling us
No, I'm looking for approval to move forward
in the form of a motion?
in a form of a motion.
Okay. Need a motion, Mr. Coy, seconded by Gutschall.
Second with discussion, please.
Discussion.
So we're out of compliance. Anything egregious? Is this like a pause until we get this information or?
You would be aware if there were anything egregious that we'd had to solve right away. I will say that I lend my support to this request. I could do this, but frankly, you know, I've been dealing with these piecemeal as they come up, or Candace has been dealing with a lot of them on her own. She consults with me, but we don't have any authority to change these.
Can you
And
give
so
us an example?
Purchase committee.
the local health board, it's statutory cap of 9 members. The way the committee structure is written, it's the entirety of the Health and Human Services and Veterans Committee board, so it's 11 members, so we're out of compliance there. Apparently, when we were drafting that, an employee reached out to the state to attempt to get a waiver. The state said, we've never heard of a waiver for this, and then that effort kind of fell apart, and the committee was passed.
And there's a little bit of conflicting information as to whether all of them are voting members or not. So we're not exactly certain how that has been set up or how it's been working. And then you well know that we've talked about some of the ways that our committees have been established. Pine Valley has been done by secret ballot. That's statutorily not allowed. So there are just things that we need to clean up and make sure that we're complying with. And as we establish those new board rules, you know, make sure that we know what we're doing and that we're doing it right the first time.
And so using the example of the secret ballot for Pine Valley, that would have been something that I'd have to look up. That's something Andy, I'm sure, would have known off the top of his head. And so, yes, you could pay me to do this work, but it would take longer and I would not be as assured of the final product as I would be if we consult with Phillips.
Okay. For a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I just, one other thing I would say, I fully support this. I think this is the right thing to do. But I think Candace, one thing you may want to ask Andy is if that work could be concluded before the elections so that this board could still act on the rules. I think that would be a good goal.
That's gonna be my question.
Yeah, the rules especially, the personnel policy and, you know, even the committee structure could come a little bit later. But the board rules are the more imminent issue right now. And I would like to see the committee structure completed before new board members are selected and placed on committees in April.
Great. I'll look forward to that. Okay, a motion. Do we have? a
You
motion?
got it, but
Yeah,
you
we're
want to.
we're in
you wanna
discussion.
amend the motion? Sorry, Mr. Chair.
We're in discussion.
Do we want to amend it to say, have those certain things done prior to?
I don't think you need it.
That'll be good. All right.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And are you leaving? Wendell?
Stick around a
Anything
little
else
bit.
you want us to hit?
Did you need me for the extension contract?
You're talking to Candace, I think, so.
I have nothing else I feel the need to weigh in on if there are no.
Ambulance service,
Number 11.
thing Okay. All right, we'll go down to number 10 then. Discussion and possible action resolution, amending resolution 149, relating to making changes in how ambulance services provided in the county. We have an amended.
Yes, so the ambulance service, as you know, it's in a bit of transition at this point. And before Darren left, he had met with me, and it's increasingly difficult to hire advanced EMTs. And so he had asked us to look at the possibility of hiring EMTs. And so that would then, the Joint Ambulance Committee passed that and is now recommending it to Finance and Personnel. These EMTs are reflected in the document that's attached later on with their salary requirement. It's one grade below the advanced EMT. And hopefully this would allow us to recruit more staff. We just keep our staffing up to par.
I think this is a good thing.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion made. I have a second. Mr. Turk? All those in favor? Question? See?
Just, my understanding is that this is more or less budget neutral since all those services get billed, and whether it's a county employee or not, it's kind of budget neutral.
Ambulance service is self-sustaining.
Right.
Correct. And AEMTs are actually more costly than EMTs. They cost more. So, you know, but no, the ambulance service is self-sustaining for the most part.
Thought I was gonna need an EMT last night because I went to the fireman's steak feed. Okay, we have a motion and seconded. We know what we're voting on, so all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Number 11, discussion of possible action. A resolution approving 3 new members to the Nutrition Advisory Committee effective August 1, 2023.
I would request Derek to speak to this one.
Yeah, and I don't know if,
Which is on.
is she on?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll have Trish start and then I'll fill in the gaps if I need to. Trish, are you available?
I am. So
Okay.
this is one that we typically do not bring to Finance and Personnel. It typically just goes to Candace for her approval and then to full county board. But what happened is we forgot to bring it to Candace timely. And so we had members that joined the committee and have attended meetings. So we're asking your committee to backdate appointment of these and then also backdate their pay.
Okay. So we're picking up an oversight here is what we're doing.
Right, so what happened is I went to pay the per diems and noticed that these individuals were not on the roster for that specific committee. And then Roxanne and Tanya, Trish and I kind of went through the minutes and realized that they were presented at HHS and not carried forward. So the resolution before you, 11B in your packet, is saying essentially what Trish just said, that we would appoint those individuals to the Nutrition Advisory Council effective on August 1st. Also to note, the resolution before you was drafted with Attorney Wendell. I did consult Attorney Wendell to see how we should handle, you know, this situation because we've never had this happen before. So the resolution you have before you was drafted with the HHS staff and Attorney Wendell.
All right, looking for a motion. Seconded by Carol. Ready to vote? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 12. Discussion and possible action, county position reclassifications, new positions, job descriptions, premium pay, and updates to the addendums of the handbook.
Okay, so this is a lot of information, and all of this information was included in the budget that was passed. But what I have been informed of is that in prior years, even if it was included in the budget, it had to be brought to finance and personnel and then to full county board. I think this may be something that we want to revisit in next year's budget process and just present all of this in the budget and then be done. But for continuity's sake and to ensure that it's transparent and that everyone knows what was included and what was passed in that budget, we have created these documents for you to take a look at. The one caveat to that was there's just a position description in here that has been missed. Tom Rislow and Tammy were working through something and they determined that this job description had just never been adopted. We've employed this person, they've been being paid this entire time, but their job description just was never actually affirmed. So that is the one caveat. The rest of these are all, we'll go through them kind of one by one, and then all the documents are in the packet. And if you have questions, we can speak to each one. So the first reclassification is for the payroll and benefits administrator. And it was reclassified from a grade H to a grade I. And I just noted beneath each one what the total annual increase for that range would be for that position. Ambulance service, that's a flat rate change for the paid on call to $1.50 during the week and $3 for holiday and weekend. That was passed through the Joint Ambulance Committee. And then the EMT position, which you just approved, that pay is $14.86 to $16.52 per hour. And these are all the new 2024 rates, just to be clear. The jail administrator has already been passed. That job came in at a grade L, so $33.10 to $36.78 per hour. The highway office manager was reclassified from a grade H to a grade I. And again, you'll see at the bottom there, the annual increase. The MIS director position was regraded from an M to an N. And again, you'll see the annual potential increase for that range. Pine Valley had a few different items that were submitted through the budget process. The first was switching Teresa's title from administrative assistant in accounting to business and financial services manager. This resulted in a significant increase from a grade H to a grade J, bringing this salary up between $11,000 and $12,000 annually. They also requested that vacation policy be changed. That vacation policy actually brings their vacation policy in compliance and in line with the county policy. So this is really just cleaning it up to make sure that those employees are getting the same benefit as all other county employees. And it was the vacation language stating that they're entitled to a 1 week payout of any vacation that is not used 18 months after it's earned once they have reached 15 years of service. The other item that they are requesting is to amend the Pine Valley addendum, allowing maintenance workers whose shift begin at or after 2 p.m. to receive a night shift differential of $1.50 per hour. Previously, they receive a premium of 25 cents per hour. And if it's 10 p.m. or after, they receive a 30 cents per hour premium. In looking at this, the $1.50 is consistent with what the other staff is receiving at Pine Valley, and all of it typically starts at 2 p.m. So in the following documents, you will see the memorandums. Many of these were sent in prior to me coming on as county administrator, to be clear. So these were things that were already done and were then included. And so all the documentation is there from Carlson Detman, from some department heads. There are new job descriptions that indicate which changes were made. So if you have any questions that you would like us to speak to, we'd be happy to do that. It's a lot of information.
Well, it was all included in the budget.
All of those numbers, yes, were included in the budget that was passed.
Two items strike me as being significant. One is Teresa's change. which I think is probably long overdue. I attended any of the Pine Valley meetings that this Teresa Decker runs the show. And we have the administrator, but she's doing the financials and everything. I couldn't believe we had her for the amount we were paying her.
Will that job description and those tasks stay the same after we have a finance director?
There could be some potential change. And with an HR generalist coming on as well, there could be potential change as well. Because a lot of the items that I've noted that are in that job description are HR duties, and they have an HR generalist out there. So I'm not exactly sure where the overlap is. A lot of that, Therese seems to be doing some of the benefits information and things like that too. So again, as we figure out how we're going to move forward and how we're going to consolidate, they may or may not change. I mean, it's just going to depend on the most effective way we can continue to conduct business.
And then the other one is the differential out there for maintenance. We have one maintenance department. We're gonna have one maintenance department for everything. So are we gonna pay them all, pay Randy and that $150 more? Just people.
Well, I will say with the potential of the wage study on the cusp here, I am concerned about, I go back and forth on these reclassifications, I'll be honest.
Right.
Just because what if we're way out of line? But at the end of the day too, it could take us 6 months to a year to get this wage study done. And in the meantime, then are we underpaying staff too? So that's where, it's really the wishes of the board at this point.
This points out the glaring problem we had with our whole salary compensation program.
Well, it does. And to just highlight, I will say that, Therese does have a big job, but that salary is more than some of our department heads make. And so again, there are serious compression and disparity issues, especially having two separate wage scales for people doing similar work. And that's nothing to diminish Teresa's role or anyone else's role. That's just a matter of fact. And the fact that Carlson Detman has been extraordinarily inconsistent in their practices. And so it's unfortunate because I don't want to penalize staff who's been doing really great work by not giving them an increase. And that's where we sit.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So prior to this summer, basically any department could request a study from Carlson Detman. I think some of us recently found that out, maybe. And then it would come to us as kind of a matter of fact, this happens, they're going from grade, et cetera, to et cetera. We would vote on it. So this sounds like these were all packaged, kind of maybe that same process, but all packaged in the budget. That wasn't necessarily highlighted for anyone to consider, right? I mean, when we adopted the budget, maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't remember this specifically called out.
So many of these, so the jail administrator was a separate approval because that was a brand new job. But many of these other ones were just rolled in with the budget as they presented them to us. Yes.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm saying next year, if we're going to do it that way, then we need to have all this listed out. This needs to come in front of you. We need to say, here are all reclassifications. This is what it was. This is what it is. And that's why I'm doing it for you now, because I didn't necessarily realize some of these were just rolled in either. And so that's why we need to be transparent about it.
I have a question. If we approve this and Therese gets an $11,000 a year raise, and then down the road, we consolidate and bring in the both finance and the hiring process. Are we gonna go to her and say, well, you're way over budgeted here and decrease your salary? So, I asked that. You don't have an answer for that.
No, that's the challenge here, because we don't know what the market says right now. And, you know, when I did a wage study the last time, what we did was we promised that no one would lose money. And to do that meant maintaining more than one wage scale for a period of time. It meant freezing people where they got no raises, or they only got the cost of living raises up until they caught up with the market. Sometimes that took years. And so that is the risk we run by approving these reclassifications as we see them now. You know, a smaller reclassification may not be as much of an issue. These larger jumps may be, and maybe not. Maybe that would come back that it's right in line. We just don't know. And so that's where, you know, we're sitting, and that's the honest truth of the matter.
I would add, I think in your question, I think that practice started long before I was here, but the practice started when you had so many years that the county gave no pay increases at all. It was a way for them to get increases. They would go through the committee and, you know, then it would be moved on. So that was a direct result of not having increases, pay increases for a long time. And I mean, Candace is exactly right about, you know, we don't know what the compensation study is going to say. And it could take years for everything to fall in place correctly.
I don't want to create a problem down the road for us. I mean, a bigger problem.
Mhm.
I'm a little hesitant on.
Mr. Chair, I think we already have a problem. And so, you know, we've talked about things that we're doing moving forward to address that problem, but we're not there yet. So in the meantime, I don't know that this makes anything worse, other than what Candace has said, that we're running a risk of getting people above, but we may already have people above where the market says. So
You may.
I don't know that we're making it, you know,
I
dramatically worse.
mean, the jail administrator, we discussed. We knew it was there, we were all in agreement, so.
I think this just points out that when this wage study is finished and we start rolling out, communication and explanations be huge.
It will.
Mr. Cooley,
Well, I guess my thought is when we get to where we're gonna get to, right, when you get a financial advisor, you got all that stuff. Then you're gonna you're gonna have different job positions. People are gonna post for different jobs, and that's what's gonna happen. So to me, this is the short-term fix for where we're at right now, but in the big scheme of things, once that vision comes to fruition, let's say, and we see what it's gonna be, people are gonna have to post for different jobs because jobs are gonna change. I mean, that's gonna be the reality of it. We're not gonna have business. We may have people that work in places that they work now, but the title is not gonna be the same, most likely, would be my guess. I mean, just because I've been through enough reclassification of jobs in our own world, the world I live in, that's how it works. I mean, you may be this way today, and 2 years down the road, you're in a different place, and when you get to that. So as far as I'm concerned, I feel we should go forward with this. And it's gonna fix it. So we're gonna fix it as we go, right? And in some cases, people may get frozen or whatever the case may be. But I mean, that's the right thing to do. And I think this is the right thing to do right now. Because we don't know when we're gonna have someone to do that. We may have it next week, we may have it a year from now. So.
anything else?
I'm for this.
Mr. Chair.
Pretty emotional.
Derek Kalish wants to.
Well, just to note that on attachment number 12, there's also a family preservation worker that was not on that list, that was also an agenda item on here, or lumped in with the same stuff too. So this was presented. We had this before, we had all these other ones together. So that one is, look at attachments 12 E through 12I are also the family preservation worker that's not directly listed on this list we have here. So again, those just came as separate, different
Well,
times,
those were
so.
approved by the HA.
Yep.
And that actually is a savings to the county of $7,000 a year. It's been a contracted employee through Southwest, and now we can make them a county employee and save the surcharge. So it's a position we've been funding for a long time already.
I wouldn't always say that that's a savings.
It isn't
It
always.
appears as a savings because you're not paying a certain fee. Sometimes that isn't always. That's what I'd say. When you start adding head count to the county, it's not necessarily always a savings. This is my opinion.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve this.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Mr. Cooley seconds. We've discussed it adequately. I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Julie, did you say aye?
She's muted because there's too much background noise coming from her phone call and she can't probably unmute herself.
Okay. All right. Takes us down to financial. Okay. Or
14.
we did 13, right?
Yep.
14, discussion and possible action on resolution approving Richland County to enter into a contract with Deep Sea Cybersecurity Services for endpoint and network monitoring using Carbon Black XDR for a total cost of $45,273.60 annually.
So this is an item that actually went to Marty about in an emergency. This relates to our communication issue that the county experienced a few months ago. After our initial incident, we found that we had a second incident happen. We needed to purchase the Carbon Black to protect ourselves better. This will be an annual cost. It is generally a cost of doing business. It is a fund that we will be using this year. I won't purchase as many computers to pay for this as I had allotted. We're fine. We had funding that was for HHS. They had some money that they utilized from their economic support unit. And there are just some other funds that we've been able to pull to get new computers. So we'll be able to use those funds to pay for this year. Next year, we will have to figure out what we're going to shuffle to make it work. And then in 25, they will budget for this appropriately. It's not something we could foresee coming. Unfortunately, I guess maybe you could say we could, because eventually it was going to happen. And there's probably not a choice for going with this, in my opinion. We're going to have some sort of XDR protection. And your insurance company will not allow you to maintain connection to the internet without it.
The recent incident where we didn't recover insurance costs for some of that, didn't we?
I believe so.
Or we will?
We will. Derek and I had a call with, our deductible is fairly low and they cover significant amounts of dollars for very specific pieces of
But what
the response.
was our cost? What was the total cost
We don't.
I don't have the total cost.
fighting that? I mean, we're talking tens of thousands.
Oh,
Yes.
more than that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so this is, what I'm trying to do is compare
It's
this,
a drop in the bucket.
compare this price to what we potentially were
I mean,
facing.
This cost is already less than one of the set of bills that we've seen
Yeah.
already.
So
Correct.
It's the cost of doing business in today's cyber world.
True story.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
at some point, will we ever find out exactly what happened, or is that just can't be discussed?
I requested a full report from our, insurance company. I have not received that yet, but we did request both the summary and detailed incident report. I just haven't received it from them yet. So they'll be doing that for us.
It'd just be nice to know the magnitude of the impact,
Mm-hmm.
make it easier for me to vote.
Yep.
Mr. Chair. I know we're not alone in facing these threats. I saw recently Rock County had participant data, employee data and such hacked from their system through a cyber attack. So we were fortunate to get by with the impact we had.
Didn't get it through Gary Manning's laptop.
Oh, mine is still secure. I'm just wondering, Barb, how fast will this be able to be implicated once we pass it? Or
It's done already because I did contact Marty as an
Oh.
emergency. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's done.
Well, then I have motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Covering me. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Carried. Discussion and possible action, employee uniform allowance.
So this is a record keeping or a procedural clarification that came up. When I was paying invoices, I noticed that we were approving a uniform allowance for street clothes. And so I marched my happy self over and I said, are we taxing this? And they said, no, what do you mean? And so the IRS has very specific rules on who is allowed to receive uniform allowance and how it then needs to be taxed based on what we give. So if you are wearing items that are basically only allowed to be worn to do your job, that is a non-taxable item, and you have to turn in a receipt in order to be reimbursed for the item that you purchase if the employer doesn't purchase it for you.
Example would be,
Uniforms for the sheriff's office. Okay. Now, however, I think, we have had a little carryover in practice because a couple of the secretarial staff have been receiving uniform allowance this whole time. And apparently in recent history, they were required to wear uniforms. And then somehow over the years that has shifted and they've been in plain clothes. Well, if they're going to be in plain clothes that are not emblazoned with the sheriff's office symbol or in a required uniform like a polo shirt and khaki pants or whatever it may be, then it needs to be a taxable benefit. And so as I told you the last time we were here and had this discussion, there were three options. There was the option of stopping it, because I will tell you, I've already heard grumblings from people who've seen this agenda saying, why are we giving two office staff uniform allowance or money for clothes and not everybody else? Two, make them purchase things that are required as a uniform type, or three, leave it as it is and tax the benefit. And so the Public Safety Committee voted to leave it in place and just tax it. And so I spoke with Tammy Hendrickson. Part of the discussion was, what is the easiest way to disperse that money? And the proposal is to give $250 on the first payroll in June and $250 on the first payroll in December. And then it would be taxed just like income. No more receipts would have to change hands, none of that, based on the requirements of the IRS regulation. So it's really for you now to affirm the actions that the prior committee took to leave it in place or to make another decision.
okay,
Is it, can I,
see,
I thought it was 300, or is it, it's 500?
It's 500.
It's 500.
Sheriff, maybe you could comment.
I mean, I think just kind of to reiterate some of what Candace has said. I mean, historically, they had a uniform, not that dissimilar to what patrol would wear, except they had a skirt and a uniform shirt that they wore and a jacket sometimes. Somewhere in, I don't know when the uniform went away, but somewhere in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, the board elected to, it was actually part of their check.
they got their uniform allowance as part of their check. And then somewhere in the early to mid 2000s, the county board decided, nope, we're gonna go to the voucher system. We're gonna hold the money and then you submit receipts. And so that brought us to where, so we probably were doing it correctly back in the day. And then we elected to do it the wrong way, unknowingly, I'm sure. But yeah, that's brought us to where we are today.
And
Do you have a preference on what way we go in the three choices Candace talked about?
well, the other committee has already chosen, just add it to the salary. That's basically right.
Mhm.
Counter the salary. Paid out twice a year.
Do we need to be prepared for every department to come in and ask for holding allowance? That's the only fear I have with it. I mean, not really to go against the other committees, but I can support a uniform pretty easy. But I struggle with this because and what do we do everywhere else? You know, I mean, that's the only struggle I have. If it was a uniform, I had no problem, whatever. I got no problem with it, but I struggle with this one here.
Steve Carroll?
I have to agree. We've been talking a lot tonight about trying to get things more uniform and comprehensive across the county and clean up things. And this just sounds like one more odd misalignment.
One point, Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
may.
yes.
You know, the one point that I struggle with on this is a benefit that these gals have been receiving for years. And so, you know, if we backtrack that, now they both do have some money built up that they haven't used in the reimbursement. I guess maybe a middle ground would be pay out what they have and then discontinue the practice. I don't think they would be thrilled with that, but at least they would be paid out the remainder of their monies. You know, I see both sides of this one, so it's really up to the committee as a whole, because I do agree, you know, on one hand, it feels like you're taking something away, and on the other hand, you could have other people with their hand out saying, well, I have to dress up for work too, why aren't I? Or, Clay, you could go back and say, you know what, we're just gonna require it to be uniforms.
And that was, I mean, to answer the question, that was the discussion we had at committee level, was like, I don't feel at this point I need to switch them back and make them wear a uniform. They come to work dressed appropriately for work. You know, I don't think making them wear a dedicated uniform is really necessary. So I mean, I kind of left it open to my committee anyway, as I wasn't gonna say one way or another, we should do this or do that. I think, you know, to some extent, whether it is a compensation or not, you know, I think it's been looked at as a compensation or fair or perceived as a compensation. But you know, I guess I kind of hear where Candace is coming from on like a happy middle ground. Let's pay out their existing balances. I'd like to see them keep it, but I also understand that everybody else is gonna want it to.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Could we perhaps propose to keep it in place as it is through the coming year, and then as we get more centralized HR staff and processes together, you know, give them notice that, yeah, 2024, but in 25, we're gonna look at how this is, and maybe it just gets rolled into salary at that point or something. You know, we need to make the change to comply with IRS regulations at the moment. But
Or I guess you could sunset the practice. Say it's in place for 2024, sunsetting in 2025. I mean, there's that option too.
Yeah,
Um,
Mr. Chair, I would agree with Dave on that one. And the comp study might help these two out. I know it's gonna help.
Yep.
It should, so.
Do we have wording for exactly how they want it to?
The other committee, do we have the other committee?
I don't think
There was a resolution, I didn't see.
well, we kind of left it somewhat open-ended coming out of that committee because we weren't sure what the best way to pay it out was gonna be, like, for Tammy's side. So we wanted to consult with Tammy on the 250 in January, 250 in July. So,
I get, my point is if we're gonna give them money, then my opinion is they wear a uniform. Otherwise, I'm on favor of, okay, 24 is the end of it, and move on. That's what I'm, because every other department's got every right to come in here and ask for polling allotment to go onto their wage. Everyone.
And supervisors.
Yeah, well, it's worried about that.
I recall them having a uniform,
Yeah.
like a sweater and
So they,
polo shirt.
and they do have,
With the-
logo sweaters, but it's not, I think they each have one or two. It's not like they have, it's not like it comprises a large amount of their clothing.
Yeah,
But HHS buys theirs. Believe me,
they do.
they buy lots of them too.
I'd make a motion, what I suggested, that we approve the change in the way it's paid out to comply with the IRS regulations, leave it in place in its current form through 2024 with the sunset date.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who seconds? So we're gonna sunset it.
Mr. Chair, does this address the funds that they have built in?
So what I stated to Clay is I need to look at it because those funds were placed in that, they were placed when they were supposed to be giving receipts to purchase. So I just need to look to see if I can pay out what's there and tax it, which I think we probably can. As long as we tax it, we can pay that out. And then those two final payments then would come in June and December.
Would what they've spent so far this year need to be taxed too?
Well, since this has happened, we held on to the vouchers and we have not approved them. So in that case, then we wouldn't pay that voucher. They would get their uniform allowance in June, get it again in December, and then that would just take care of whatever had been purchased up to this point.
Okay, so Dave made the motion. Mark, who has presented, I think, the contrary opinion.
I agree with all that.
Second from motion, so I think there we have reached consensus. So I would call for a vote. All those in favor of that motion. Sunset. Go ahead for the year, sunset, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Are they gonna quit?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No, not over this.
Some other-
Let's not.
As they get bigger, raise the next year.
So we don't give them a gun allowance, do we?
These are the things people stop me in the street about. Nobody asks about the radio tower.
$500 holding. That's what I mean. That's the problem. That's the problem.
Okay, discussion and possible action, approve contract for Richland County Extension Services.
So this is an annual contract. Typically, I know we can just go ahead and sign these, but as it's my first go round with this contract, I just wanted it to come before the committee and ensure that you are comfortable with this contract. This is how you want to move forward. And just get that approval before I put my signature on the dotted line and send it back over to Adam Patey.
Was it included in our
Yes,
packet?
you don't have it in yours?
Well, I can't find it.
Here,
It's number
Got it.
16.
It doesn't mean I don't
the
have it.
very end. It's right here.
Here it is, Board of Regents.
Okay, page 45 of the packet.
There's a lot of stuff.
My comment on this would be there are larger questions here than simply standard. Did you want to tackle them at this point, or are we gonna muddle on as we have been?
I don't believe it's on the agenda, Marty, to tackle anything other than this.
Beyond this, right? So
I would
probably-
suggest if you wanted it as
I
a
probably
future
need to
agenda
get-
item.
I think we should. Move it straight to finish. We should, but now we have this before us, and this is a 60-40 agreement, I think, if I recall.
Just as a cost share agreement of up to $96,369 for the year of 2024.
That's consistent with what was budgeted.
I think you're right, Marty, that's 60-40. I think. Yeah, it's 60.
Yeah, they might differ though, the 4-H one might.
One of them pay most of it, I think, isn't it?
To be clear, we pay the entirety of the 4-H educators, which is $46,247. We pay half of the regional agricultural educator, which is $23,124.
Because we share it with Crawford County.
And then we pay a large majority of the human development and relationships educator. That total fee is $46,247, and the county pays 0.8 of that, which is $36,998. And then we get a $10,000 credit for first educator discount, which brings us to our total of $96,360.
But then you add in the costs of the administrative staff that we pay 100%. So.
Correct.
Yeah, what's that budget, 150,000?
Ish.
Yeah,
Okay.
now, we take everything with the state so far.
So we, you want Candace to sign this? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second, Bill. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Future agenda item. Okay. Future agenda item, this certainly would be a future agenda item.
Extension.
Concern. Yeah.
Okay.
It's coming. Also, then what else did we have? Future agenda?
I don't recall anything else, Mr. Chair.
It is an agenda. All right,
Make a motion to adjourn.
second. Julie, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? How the Badgers do? How the Badgers do?
Good job.